Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. I am so happy you're here and excited to have you join me on a day in my kitchen. The first thing we're making is this delicious Tuscan soup that I highly recommend for fall and winter. It is a family favorite and it goes beautifully with some sourdough baguette or some garlic bread. The first thing you'll do is brown some Italian sausage. I'm using medium Italian sausage today. I usually do mild, but medium is delicious as well. In fact, when I use mild, I usually add some extra red chili flakes to give it that nice kick. So brown your sausage, add some onions, add lots of garlic, cube some potatoes. My favorite are red because they break down so creamy, and top it off with bone broth. Add a little salt, pepper, maybe a little additional garlic powder, and just let it low boil until everything's nice and tender. This soup cooking, I'm gonna start on some breakfast. Today I'm making peach German pancakes. I got a big bulk order of local peaches yesterday, and so I want to use them in any way I can, and I thought German pancakes would be a delicious way to use them. So I've got half a stick of butter melting in the oven on a cast iron skillet. You can do this recipe in half for just one portion, or you can do one recipe in two different pans. Today I doubled the recipe in one pan. It's not what I usually do, but it worked. So I did it today. It was a lot thicker than usual, but we loved it. It's 2 cups of milk, 2 cups of flour, 2 tablespoons of sugar, about a tablespoon of vanilla extract, and 8 to 12 eggs. So while that butter's melting, I'm going to slice up some of these gorgeous peaches and then lay them on the cast iron skillet in the butter to cook down a little bit while I get the rest of the mixture blended. Then I'll combine everything in the oven and sprinkle it with cinnamon and allow it to bake until it's set. It usually puffs up when it's ready. It puffed up just a little in the middle today, but because it was so thick, it didn't puff up very high. This was the last bulk order from Bulk Food Natural for peaches for the year. So I'm gonna savor these and make them stretch as far as I can. I've already sliced up about 40 of them and put them in the freezer so I can use them for cobblers and crisps and pies in the near future. And I'm sure we'll use them for pancakes again. We also got 10 pounds of blueberries, which is also the last order of blueberries for the year. So looking forward to using some of those as well in some cobblers and crisps, and of course pancakes and muffins and anything else our heart desires. A lot of you have been asking me to show you my sourdough bread from start to finish. I have some older videos where I do show my sourdough artisan loaf, and even though I typically follow the same method, my recipe is different, and I think the way I show that I bake it in that video is different as well. So I will be showing you guys my whole process soon. I just fed my starter because I intend to mix up some dough later tonight and bake some loaves in the morning. And I will show you that in this video, but I'll show you a more detailed video soon. I'm also getting some bone broth going. So my Instapot, you guys, I know it took me years to get one. I finally got one for Christmas and I'm so happy I did. It has been such a great addition to my kitchen. I love pressure cookers. I grew up with pressure cookers in the kitchen. They were just the loud, noisy, dangerous ones on the stovetop. This electric one is amazing because it's so safe, it's so easy, and it's not producing a bunch of heat in the kitchen, which is really nice because I can make bone broth midsummer and it's not going to matter. I will turn this thing on for 4 hours with 3 to 4 chicken carcasses in it, top it off with water, put a little apple cider vinegar in there, and in a couple of hours I have the most beautiful bone broth, the most amazing soft tender bones for my dogs, and I just love my Instapot. I use it for other stuff too, like yogurt, but I definitely use it predominantly for bone broth. I did make some sourdough baguettes yesterday and we have thoroughly enjoyed them. So I'm slicing them up now so that we can have them with our soup, but that's for later this afternoon. I'm just prepping because my boys do have several friends coming over and this is what I made them for lunch. For us, we're starting off our day with this gorgeous peach German pancake and beautiful organic maple syrup. This was a delicious, very warming, and very comforting breakfast. It is a really busy time of year in the kitchen. My garden is officially a jungle, and so I've got tons of tomatoes coming out all the time, tons of squash, tons of cucumber, tons of peppers. I'm needing to dry a bunch of herbs, pickle all the cucumbers, the jalapenos. I make hot sauce. I've made cowboy candy. I've made a bunch of spaghetti sauce, and the list goes on. Not to mention prepping for winter, getting all of my medicines ready as well. And so I just feel like there's always something going on in the kitchen, staying on top of our kombucha and on top of my bone broth and on top of the yogurt and bread. One pot meals are very appreciated during this time of year. And so stuff like this German pancake and this beautiful soup really just feel like a vacation in the kitchen. It also makes me think about how we're just supplementing some of our food with our small garden. It still gives us a lot. It's a huge blessing, but it's nowhere near enough to completely supply all of our food needs. And so when people did have to live that way, what hard work. It really gives me a great appreciation for all that they did and for the things that we have today that make it a little easier for us. I'm thankful for the farmers I know that I can buy raw dairy from and local produce and local grass-fed beef, etc. It's a huge blessing. I added 2 whole containers of spinach to the soup to finish it off, along with a cup of heavy cream, making this soup one of our favorites. It is so delicious. I hope you get to try it and tell me what you think. It's much later in the evening and my starter is nice and bubbly and active, so I'm gonna get some dough going. I always use a scale. I used to not use a scale, but now I do, and I highly recommend it. I actually feel my bread turns out significantly more consistent, and I think it's easier. I don't know why it seems so hard to commit to a scale, but it turns out to be so much easier. I am using a different recipe than I will share with you in my future video of my sourdough loaves. I like to use fresh milled wheat as much as possible in my bread. So this recipe has some all-purpose and some soft milled wheat that I freshly mill in my grain mill, but I know not everybody has a grain mill or do they want one. So I will definitely share a video just using all-purpose flour in the near future. I love making bread for my family. It is definitely one of my passions. I feel like making as high quality food as we can afford with the best ingredients we can find and making things minimally processed from scratch if possible is such a passion of mine. I've been baking bread for 15 years. I've been milling my grain for 12 or 13 years, I think 13. And I have been making sourdough for 4 years. So it's okay to change things as you go and tweak them as you go and add new skills. It's just part of being a homemaker. We don't just all start doing all the things right away. It really is a journey, and if you just are patient with yourself and have grace on yourself and add the critical things in the beginning with simple baby steps like minimizing sugar, minimizing processed foods, making as much as you can from scratch, you're already going in a great direction. It is the next day, and so you're spending a day and a few hours with me in my kitchen. I wanted to show the product of some of yesterday's work. This is what my dough looks like in the morning when it's time to bake. So I'm going to divide this into 2 loaves, bake those, and also strain my bone broth. You have probably seen people baking their sourdough loaves in a Dutch oven. I used to do that, but since I baked two, I would have to finish one loaf, take it out, and then do it again, which made the oven at 450 degrees for so long. It was very hot. And so now I bake with a casserole dish filled with water in the oven so it creates steam. And I line 2 pie dishes with parchment paper, and it comes out just as good, if not better, not to mention half the time of baking. I have recently started to drink tea a little earlier in the day. I used to have 2 to 3 cups of coffee in the morning and then have some tea later, but now I'm having 1 cup of coffee in the morning and having my tea soon after and trying to stop around 2. I noticed that it was starting to affect how quickly I was able to fall asleep, and so I have resorted to my apple cider vinegar lemonade, my cold brew herbal teas in the afternoon, and of course, amazing treasured water. I love water so much. It's kind of funny, but I do. It's the best drink in the world. So I'm scoring my loaves here. They're not cold because I didn't put them in the fridge. Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. I think they're much easier to score in a smooth motion when they're cold and firm, but these are room temperature, so I have to do a little bit of a sawing motion. It still does the trick, and I think they come out beautiful. While those baked, I went ahead and cut up the remaining peaches so I can bag them and freeze them. They were almost too ripe and I didn't want them to go to waste. I also went ahead and jarred some red clover that I foraged the other day and is ready to be stored away for tinctures and teas in my tea cabinet. My bread is ready, and I love having 2 loaves because it just makes sure that we've got enough bread for the next couple of days for snacks and meals. My bone broth is also ready, so I'm straining that. I always store it in my big red bowl in the fridge. I would say I use bone broth mostly to cook with our basmati. So instead of water, I will use bone broth as the liquid for rice, and it is so delicious. Of course, I use it for soup bases and any other way I can in any of my cooking. I also have all this dry sage from my garden, and I have been researching recently how powerful sage is as a medicinal herb. I've always known that, but refreshing my memory on it made me want to go ahead and get a tincture going of just sage. I've also been planning on making this anti inflammatory tincture with fresh turmeric and ginger and sage and pepper and cinnamon with my friend for several weeks, and we finally got together to do it. So I am topping off this beautiful dried sage from my garden with some 100 proof vodka, as well as all this beautiful ingredients for our anti inflammatory tincture with vodka. And they will be on this shelf for the next 6 weeks for our first winter medicines. I'm so excited to have you guys have joined me today in my kitchen. I hope you enjoyed and that you're inspired. God bless you all, and see you next time.